everyone, my name's Gina and I'm going to be talking about my experience studying abroad at the University of Auckland for 1 year. I thought this would be a really great opportunity to reflect, reminisce, and also help anyone out there who wants to know what to expect or is also thinking about studying abroad. So I'm going to talk about this kind of chronologically and in categories, but everything will kind of be at a high level just because I could talk on and on and on about everything. So if there is something that you want to hear more about or have questions about, please leave a comment and I'm happy to do more videos. I stayed for their second semester, summertime in New Zealand, and first semester. Because the semesters don't align with Canadian or American semesters, it's a little bit weird like that. But I arrived in July and I'll talk a little bit about how my first day went. So I arrived around 6 or 7 a.m. and the University of Auckland has a shuttle service provided for free for students arriving in New Zealand for the first time. And so I signed up for this, which was great. However, when the driver came, he didn't have my information down on his list, but it was no problem. He ended up taking me to the accommodation anyways. And he also gave us a welcome bag, so there was just some flyers, some snacks, and some water in there. So once we arrived to my accommodation, which was Carlaw Park Student Village, or SPSV, I had no problem checking in at the front desk and getting the keys to my flat. This day was so exciting. I remember arriving, taking pictures, getting connected to the Wi-Fi because I hadn't had service for Wi-Fi at this point. And then the first thing that I did after unpacking a little bit was I walked to the warehouse in central Auckland and I bought some bedding. As well, I got some food from the Central Countdown and some other things on my agenda for the day. Set up a bank account, and then once I set up a bank account, I could set up my phone account. So I ended up getting a bank card from ASB, and I know that you have to have your student visa for I think at least a year to get a bank account. Like for example, a lot of my American friends were only staying for a semester and so they couldn't get a bank account. And then once I got that, I went to Vodafone and got a SIM card from there. I remember walking from Carlaw Park Student Village to Albert Park and through the university campus, and it was just such a nice walk. And as well, I remember the first day that I went, it went from being really sunny to pouring rain. So that's another thing with Auckland, make sure to have your umbrella. I think I didn't have that many initial challenges or surprises. I did a ton of research, and to be honest, New Zealand isn't too different from like America or Canada. The only two things I need to adjust to were driving on the left and how much they like drum and bass. Next, I'll kind of be talking about my social life. So I think social life is super important when you're studying abroad, just because you won't have your family nearby and this is your main support network. And I was really lucky. So when I first arrived, I met my roommate, who was also an exchange student from America, and he was super friendly. So he had already made some American friends. And I remember that first day we just took a walk around our neighborhood and explored and talked, and it was really cool. And during our orientation, we had, I believe, an orientation for international students, and we were able to make some friends also staying at the same accommodation, and they were a group of British friends. So we all kind of joined and created this friend group with mostly Americans, British, me Canadian, and a few others. One thing I heard before studying abroad was that a lot of students find that they make friends with other international students and they may not interact with domestic students as much as they would like. So I was really conscious of that, and I really made an effort to make friends with Kiwis and, you know, learn more about the culture. So I was able to make some really good friends through my classes as well, specifically through my elective class, so through Spanish of all classes, because, you know, it's a bit of a smaller class. It's a class about talking and practicing languages, whereas all my other classes in like sciences and statistics and physics, there wasn't that much opportunity to make friends during lectures. And I'll also talk about my classes later. One piece of advice is to join clubs. I know it might seem really obvious, but one of the highlights of my trip was joining the ski trip. So they do a mid-semester trip to their ski lodge. It's called Varsity Week. So it was in the beginning of September, I believe, and it was the most fun week ever. And I met one of my bestest friends ever, Evelina, and she's actually a Kiwi. So it was really great to meet some like domestic students, and as well, it really helped to meet someone who grew up or like has lived in Auckland and, you know, has a car and knows their way around. Some of the other clubs that I joined were like lacrosse, I joined volleyball, I joined rowing, but that was actually cut short due to COVID, unfortunately. But, you know, just be really open to these things. Like, I've never rowed before, but I just decided to join because I had an interest in it. And the clubs at University of Auckland are so great. Their club fair is done so well, and I would say the community at the University of Auckland is like so great. So compared to the University of Toronto where I went, that's such a huge school, and the sense of community can kind of be lost, whereas the University of Auckland, their campus is so great. They have a student bar in the middle of campus. There's always like little booths and things going on, and it's so amazing, honestly. In terms of classes, I took a lot of science classes, but also electives, and some other prerequisites as well. So for example, I took a lot of environmental science, marine biology, ecology, medical science classes. But then as well, I took physics, statistics, and Spanish, which was really fun. The marine biology course I took was super cool. They had an overnight trip during the mid-semester break for just the weekend, I believe, to their conservation area in Lee, and it was just so beautiful. I felt really grateful to be able to study in such like a beautiful place. I don't know. I will say that I'm a very academically focused and driven person, but I knew going into my year abroad that I didn't want that to be my priority. My priority was definitely living, being social, learning about the culture, and traveling. So academics weren't my focus, but with that being said, I didn't find any surprises or challenges. I ended up doing well in all my classes despite not having that be my main priority. In terms of accommodation, like I said, I stayed at Carlaw Park Student Village, and this was a really great experience. I really recommend staying on campus if you can, and in Carlaw Park was more of a flat arrangement, so you have a lot more independence than traditional dorms. The location is amazing. It's super close to campus, just on the bottom of the hill. It's also near like a wooded area, which is really nice to walk through. It's also near the museum, the hospital, Parnell, train stations, and walking distance to Britomart, walking distance to basically everywhere central. So I was really lucky with my first set of roommates. In my second semester, I was not as lucky. So I had a new group of students coming in, just did not really get along, and my friends and I knew that it would be best if I switched my living situation. So I talked to like the manager of CPSV, and at first there was a little resistance because, you know, you don't want to just accept every request to like change flats. But after explaining my point of view a little bit more, she was really receptive, and I was able to move to a different flat, which I'm very grateful for. Next, talking kind of about money. So obviously studying abroad is really expensive. So my one piece of advice is to apply for all bursaries and awards. Even things that you think you may not get, I'd say apply. So from the University of Toronto, I was able to receive some money, and then as well from the University of Auckland, they also had bursaries available. As well, my friends and I did work. So me, for example, I got a couple different jobs. So the first one was retail, and then the second job, which I really enjoyed, was hospitality. So I worked in a restaurant, and as well I worked in the restaurant's sister bars when there were big events. My other friend had bar experience, so she had a couple jobs at a couple different bars, and one of my friends, she worked at a call center for the summer. A must-do while you're studying abroad is to take as many weekend trips as possible. So a few around New Zealand that I did or friends did was we did Piha Beach really early on, like within a month, I think, of getting there. We did Murray for my birthday, which was also nearby. We camped there and it was like such a fun time. As well, in terms of weekend trips, I think there's a hike called Peach Cove. There's Rangitoto Island. You can stay overnight at Waiheke Island, which is a big winery island. Moving away from weekend trips, so for the mid-semester break, my friends and I, with the ski club, we went to Mount Whakapapa. I know some of my other friends, they went to Australia or Fiji, or one group, they rented a van and drove along the South Island. And then me and some of the other British students, we're staying for the whole year, so we were able to plan trips during the summer, whereas I know the Americans, they only stayed for the first semester, so that was kind of their only opportunity, was a mid-semester break, weekend trips, and then obviously after the semester. So for our summer trip, we had a couple. The first semester that we were there started from July and ended in November, so really shortly after, we got a van and decided to drive around the North Island for 10 days. And we knew we wanted to do this for a long time, but we ended up planning it super last minute. So we didn't really book a van online because we just were like, oh, we don't know. I don't know. We just like pushed it off. And then we ended up just going to this van place in person on the day, or like the day before, on the day that we wanted a van. And we ended up getting one. And was manuals, and I can't drive manuals, so my British friend was driving the entire time. It was the three of us, and we started driving north, and then we would, I need to look this up. Oh, I have the map in front of me. We started driving up. I think we went to Waipu to see the glowworms, and then we eventually made our way all the way up to Cape Ranga, so the most northern tip. And I know that we had stops in the Bay of Islands area and as well Whangarei area, I believe. And then after that, we drove south. So we went to Rotorua, Taupo. I think we also went to Napier, and we also went west to New Plymouth area for the national park, Egmont, I think. And then we went back up to Hamilton and then back to Auckland. So kind of random places, but I had a lot of fun. It was a really great experience, and just like living out of a van for 10 days was really great. During this trip, one thing I really wanted to do was the Tongariro Crossing. It's like the iconic hiking trip, day trip that you have to take when you're in New Zealand. Unfortunately, the conditions were really bad, so they have like alerts, and they said it was best not to. So we did like the first little bit and then had to turn around and go back, but one day I'll go back and I'll do it. And then our second trip was around Christmas time, so it was the four of us. We were all spending Christmas in New Zealand, so we decided to take a trip to the South Island, and this was a driving and camping trip. I don't remember our exact route, but we rented a car and we were able to go to Christchurch, Arthur's Pass, Lake Tekapo, Dunedin, Queenstown, Wanaka, and Milford Sound. And we ended up spending Christmas in Wanaka, which was really nice. And we did, I think it's Rhythm and Alps. I know the big one is Rhythm and Vines in the North Island, but they have Rhythm and Alps in the South Island. So it was a New Year's festival, and one thing that New Zealand does right is festivals. So we ended up doing that, which I thought was a really unique experience. Like, obviously in the Northern Hemisphere, you can't camp. It's really cold during New Year's, whereas New Year's in Australia and New Zealand is their summertime, so that was really fun. And one of my friends ended up meeting her now long-term boyfriend there, which is really cool. And after summer, that leads us to the next semester. This semester, unfortunately, was kind of not as eventful as the first one, just because there was COVID and there was lockdowns. Luckily for New Zealand, they weren't hit very badly, so they didn't have to lock down as hard as North America at the beginning of COVID. Once the lockdown lifted, it was probably, I think, around April or May, must have been around May, and by June we were already planning more trips and stuff. So after the semester ended, we went to Wellington, which is in the North Island but at the very bottom, and this was such a great experience. Wellington is such like an artsy little city. There's mountains in the background. It's so beautiful. It's New Zealand's capital, but I would compare it to, like, in Canada, maybe Montreal, like very cool and artsy. And if I had the option to study abroad, I would probably choose Wellington. But once we were done in Wellington, we took a ferry down to the South Island. So I don't really remember where that drops us off, but I think in Picton. July at this point, so it was winter in New Zealand, so we took this opportunity to go skiing in Queenstown and Wanaka, and it was so amazing, so beautiful. I know everyone goes to Queenstown, but Wanaka was amazing as well. Funny story is, one of my friends actually broke their collarbone skiing, so that was a interesting experience, having to go pick them up from the hospital and them having to get like literal morphine and stuff. In terms of traveling in New Zealand, I would say some of my highlights were definitely Rotorua. It's so amazing to hike there, look at all the geothermal activity there, super cool, and as well anything skiing or snowboarding related. So because of New Zealand, I got really into snowboarding. Recommend Whakapapa, Wanaka, Queenstown obviously. Milford Sound is a must-do. It's so beautiful there. We did Arthur's Pass, which was a really difficult hike, but it was so beautiful and so worth it. And I would also say I have a bunch of my little spots that I like to go to in Auckland. So if I were to go back to Auckland, I would definitely take the ferry and go to Devonport. That is my favorite place ever. I would go there, grab some ice cream, go to the movie theater. I love that movie theater so much. I would go up the mountain there. I think it's Mount Victoria. They have like the little mushrooms up there. And they also have this music venue, which is called The Bunker, but it looks very much like a bunker. And I don't know, I would just sit there and watch the sunset. Mount Eden is one of my favorites in Auckland, so I would go there a lot. It's like a really nice walk through residential areas, and you get this really amazing view of the city, and the hill itself is really amazing. Like, there's this huge crater, it's like unreal. And also, this is like kind of random, but there's this like pink road that has this amazing view of the city line. I don't really know what it's called, but I'm sure if you look up Pink Road Auckland, you'll find it. But I don't know, I haven't heard much about it. I just stumbled across it like during my runs and on my walks, and yeah, it's so cute. Where Carlaw Park is, it's super close to the water in the harbor, so I would always do my runs and walks there as well, and it's so beautiful. So I guess I would talk a little bit about the nightlife. So I'm not usually someone that goes out very much, but in Auckland I was, just because my friends wanted to, and you know, it's all about being social on your year abroad. So I will say I think Auckland doesn't have the best nightlife, but it doesn't matter as long as you have good company. We would go out a lot in Central just because it's so close to where we were staying. We also went to K Road, so that's kind of their version of the gay village that they have. I think we went out in Ponsonby once or twice, but looking back, I would definitely go out more in Ponsonby, I think. I will say the guys in New Zealand or Auckland, they're the same as like in Canada and America. Maybe a little bit nicer, but yeah, they're the same. So how I've changed and grown from this experience, I have become a completely different person after this experience. I left so much more confident, so much more outgoing. It really changed me, because when you go to a place where you don't know anyone, you can be anyone. You can be so confident. You can like reinvent yourself if you want to, but like, yeah. So when I came back, I took a lot of my mindset in New Zealand and I brought it back home to Toronto. So in New Zealand, I was always looking for things to do, exploring the city, getting out there, meeting people as much as possible. And that's something that I didn't really do back at home. But since coming back, I've definitely adopted that mindset. I also think just learning about other cultures, how other people live, getting a new perspective, living on your own, all those things are super beneficial. And I would encourage anyone who has the opportunity to study abroad to do it. I know financials can be really difficult, but there's definitely resources, and if you can, do it. And I would even say if studying abroad means you have to extend your degree, I think it's worth it. Also, I love my time in New Zealand, but something that I also think would be cool would be to study somewhere where English is not the primary language. So maybe like France or Spain or somewhere where you would have the opportunity to learn a new language as well and practice that language. I think would be an amazing experience. So yeah, that was just a little overview and my experience studying abroad at the University of Auckland. If you have any more questions or requests or anything at all, please leave them in the comments below. I have a lot of funny stories from my time. So subscribe, like, comment, share, whatever. Thanks. Bye.